Actually have no other job to do as a leader. When you're in leadership, the biggest and only job you have is decision making. So I talk to people and I tell the people I look after as a leader that you need to master the art of decision making. You do not need to be scared about making decisions. All you need to do is learn it and then become a master at it. Welcome to another episode of Sparks and Blues. Today we're delving into something that has to do with leadership and the workplace. And then in Sparks and Blues, we talk about lifestyle matters, business issues, and of course, career issues. We would like to appreciate those of you that have been following our pages and really thank you for your comments, your shares, and your likes thus far. We appreciate those of you that have also subscribed to our YouTube channel, and then we'd like to talk to those of you who are meeting us online for the first time to please subscribe to our YouTube channels and follow us on our other social media handles so that you'll be among those to first hear and see our exciting videos as soon as they drop. So yes, as a leader, I tell people your biggest and only job is actually decision taking. Yeah, it's one job. However, it's actually massive. It's big and it's something that is quite time consuming and requires superior intellect. So yes, has it been in your corner as a leader? Have you fared? Have you been faring with regards to taking decisions? Have you managed to be fair? Have you managed, to take effective decisions that have helped your teams, that have helped your organization, helped your business, and even helped your life generally? Because you also need to take decisions within family circles as well. Yeah, so actually, you do not necessarily need to be probably in a position before you begin to master the art of decision taking. Growing up, you also will definitely take certain decisions for your own life. And it's important that you get used to these things. You do not get yourself confused, and you should be ready to also live with the consequences of your decision. I think it's quite important. That's what gives you the stamina and gives you the wherewithal to get used to taking decisions. So yes, I look after, a number of staff. I look after people in one or two businesses that I run, and a lot of times I sit down and I have to take decisions around different departments. I manage multifunctional departments. What that means is I have to deal with human resources, finance, I have to deal with operations, I have to deal with the medical guys, I have to deal with a lot of things, partners, clients, etc. And it's a whole lot. Of course, you will definitely have managers that sit on all of these things, but then trust me, the buck ends up with you. Yes, at their own level, they also have to take decisions. And that is what I preach to the people I look after. I tell them it's important that you get used to these things. It's important that you learn it because you never can tell where you will be very soon. You might be given bigger responsibilities where you actually need to be tested about your position on certain sensitive issues, and then management will look up to you to see how you intend or how you would be handling those things. And then I usually preach these things. So yes, another thing I would like to talk about is the fact that you do not just wake up and begin to become a master at taking decisions. I, for one, I had to learn a lot of stuff. I had to pass through so much, to learn these things, to get used to these things. I get faced daily with tough decisions. Trust me, tough business decisions, and I really need to take these decisions and try as much as possible to ensure that I'm not ruining people's lives. I'm not ruining finances. I'm not ruining investments. I'm not ruining the companies, by my decisions, so it's a whole lot of mental work. It requires a whole lot of intellect. It's not something that, you just follow protocols, maybe you follow some pasted cardboards to do. No, there are things that you need to probably sleep over. You need to really have deep thoughts around, and you really need to sort of be aware. You need to know certain things to be able to take serious top level decisions. And at some point, I was speaking to someone or to a group of people, and there were diverse topics being presented, and I was able to say a couple of things about this, and that. And someone goes to say, you say you are this, how come you know this again? Oh, you say you are that, how come you are? I said, well, that is what it is. That's how I found myself. And how did I build these competencies? I was able to build these competencies, like I always say, from my background. I grew up with from a background where it's a thing. I saw my dad being knowledgeable about a host of topics, a host of subjects, and that sort of formed me. And I like to sort of say that about myself as well. I'm able to look at figures, look at financial statements. I'm able to interpret them as well. Yeah, I'm not a chartered accountant, but for people who have worked with me over the years, they understand that when it comes to looking at the company's books, preparing myself solidly for the boardrooms, I'm able to successfully do those things. I've been running such terrains successfully now for upward of 6 years, and I think I'm still definitely learning, but then I've been able to successfully pass through boardrooms without being fired. So these are some of the things that I think it's important for people to know. It's also important that you understand people management in taking leadership decisions. Yes, we're talking about taking decisions as a leader in the workplace. That is what we're talking about today. Despite the fact that, you may be saddled with taking decisions across different strata of the world or of life. Yes, but at this time today, I'm talking to us about taking decisions in leadership positions in business or in the workplace. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. It's important that as a leader, especially if you're leading in the C-suite, which includes being a CFO, Chief Operating Officer, or the CEO or Managing Directors, it's important that you have a holistic view of the entire organization. Yes, you would have managers, you have heads looking after different departments. However, it's unheard of if you have no clue about each department and each business segment of your business. So it's important that you build up yourself with that capacity to be able to interpret the figures, to understand the products, to understand the clientele management, to also understand people, to have an idea of what you think or what you want or what you planned for the company's culture. Because the company and its leadership is as good as the home. And if you look deeply, you'll see that most homes generally end up having the aura of the parents. So that's just how the organization is. You really cannot take an organization off the leadership. So if you've got a bad leadership or leadership by there's this thing in Nigeria, divide and rule. I don't know if that's a cliche. I don't know how that sounds. If you have those kinds of people in leadership, then your organization is going to run that way, and people would feel very uncomfortable. But despite the hurdles of daily activities, of how difficult organizations are, if you're still able to, stand out from, all those chaotic experiences and ensure that you're leading right, you're doing things the proper way, you will see that the look and feel of your organization would definitely be different. And so still speaking about taking decisions, it's going to be so difficult for you as a leader sitting in the C-suite if you have no understanding of how systems work. If you have no understanding of the software you're purchasing, you will definitely not be able to defend it in the boardrooms. I've heard about people who got fired because they probably approved very expensive softwares for the organization, and it wasn't as though the software wasn't okay, but it was as a result of the fact that the CEO couldn't speak appropriately about the software, did not understand the technicality of the software, could not tell the board the value the software was bringing to the organization, could not give an estimate of why they had to spend this amount versus why what they'll be gaining for spending that amount on the software. And unfortunately, the board took a decision. Of course, that would be on top of a host of other things. But then with the way boardrooms are, for those of you that, go to boardrooms, you might have been, having a lot of issues, and then there'll be the last chance, and that happened. And, the guy was asked to leave. I've also been in boardrooms where, people were asked to go because they couldn't defend audited financials. Yeah, and they couldn't speak to the figures, they couldn't speak to certain mix-ups, and they wanted the audited financials to be approved, and then they just couldn't defend it. Part of what causes this thing for me, I think, for lack of a better, I just want to call it laziness and just being incapable of doing things excellently. Because I see no reason why you call yourself a C-suite executive and you cannot take your time to study an audited financial statement before approaching your board of directors. If I were also in that board, trust me, I can ask you to go. So these are some of the things you tend to deal with that form your decision taking as a leader on a daily basis. And of course, you'll be hit with sudden information that are not palatable, loss of a client, poor investment, different kinds of things, or investment going wrong, loss of assets, and a host of issues, that you will be saddled with settling, resolving on a daily basis as top executive. So it's important that you cultivate that habit, you learn the habit of taking things in, understanding how things work, and generally being vast. You need to be knowledgeable about a lot of things. So your human resource director is coming to speak to you about, what they are doing, what they are working on, and you are just aloof. You have no clue. You cannot understand what they are saying. I don't think that's good enough. Your finance director is coming to speak to you about the figures, about how the books are looking, and you just don't have a clue. You're leaving things, decisions that you're meant to take, you're just sort of leaving them on the table. These things can, at the end of the day, accumulate and affect your business negatively. So what am I bringing out today to leaders in the workplace, leaders in business? It's important that you learn, cultivate, and master the art of taking decisions, especially in the toughest moments and the darkest moments. You need to be able to stand and take decisions that would be valuable to the business, to the people, and of course without hurting yourself as well, because you need to take into cognizance how those decisions would affect you as well. You need to be a deep thinker. You need to be a deep thinker that has huge clarity, because a lot of people can think, but they lack clarity, and nobody's going to put clarity on your laps. It's important that despite the hustles, despite the chaotic movements of daily activities, or because you've got your hands in different stuff, you still definitely need to have clarity, because when things are really bad, no one is going to help you. The buck stops at your table. So you have directors, you have other C-suite members. They will definitely end up with you as the CEO. They'll only put down their suggestion, put down their thoughts. You need to aggregate these things together and be able to take a decision. Of course, carrying people along, that is key. That would definitely favor the organization without you, being fired or being asked to go by the board, or probably having something negative going on. So yeah, that's what I have for us today. And as I add on, if you're an employee as well, it's important, whatever role you sit on, you need to begin to learn this thing, because you never can tell where you would be in a couple of years, in a couple of months. Prepare yourself. Just prepare yourself when these things come upon you, and you'll be ready. And in other aspects of life, you also need to take decisions. That's not what we're talking about today, but let it just cut across. If you've listened to this session, think about it deeply. You need to take decisions about your health, about where you want your health to be, about the way you want to look. You need to take a lot of decisions, your finances, relationships, and all of these things. If you keep throwing ideas around, thinking or looking or clamoring for people that will take these decisions for you, then you might just get stuck at the end of the day. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.